My name is Zivnuska. I'm a sales engineer working in mid-market enterprise level scenarios. So today we're going to go over a blueprint and how that impacts your support process, how it can assist you moving things along the chain. So the outline of this, we'll go through the example. We'll go through kind of what the difficulties are through that process. We're going to identify how we can resolve it, what exchange of hands happens, and then how we'll, at the very end, we'll take 10 minutes, go through how to actually build a blueprint visually. That way you can take that knowledge home and use it in your organization. The ticket we saw in the last session was related to having the wrong size t-shirt for a person that wasn't quite so big or so small. So we're just going to go through what that may look like. So when we receive that ticket, of course it'll be open. Each stage in our process needs to be, handled by a different individual. So when we start with opened, we need to make sure why are we transferring or why are we exchanging that good? So if you're not doing maybe retail, but you're working in an environment where you're providing a service, if you're a IT, MSP, or anything like that, you may do a little bit of troubleshooting before you identify an issue and validate whether or not exchanging that good is the right decision to make. So during that transition, we're going to go ahead and assume, all right, we're going to go and exchange this good. So then we get to the second department, verifying our inventory. So again, if you're working in IT, and you're providing an outcome, you may actually have to go on site and replace a part. So at that point, you are now involving your inventory specialist. You don't want to make a promise to the customer that it'll be done on a certain day, especially before you even know if you've got that product. You may in fact need to order that product, perform an RMA with your vendor to get it in your inventory, and then send it out. So after we get that inventory, we'll go ahead and make sure we've received the inventory. Again, it's a transition state, but we are still involving the purchasing department in our organization. Now, after that, the inventory is received. We do need to give it to somebody that will go install that item, or we just need to have it in stock so the individual can come pick it up from our storefront. So if you're working with any goods that may not be an install on site, but it is a very unique good, and that person's willing to come pick it up from you, we'll go ahead and schedule that pickup. So at that point, I'm just going to recap. We've gone from a support individual who's taken in the ticket. We've passed that off to the inventory team that's going to procure that product. And now we're actually working with a different person that may be, again, in the field delivery or just in your retail storefront to actually be face-to-face with the customer if they come in. So after we get the product and we give it to the customer, you have to get the broken product in order to, again, RMA it, validate it as it was the wrong thing, take it back in an inventory, and do a few steps like that. So we just perform that last function, taking back the item into inventory, and you close your ticket. So at this point, we've involved a few different departments to resolve what seems to be a pretty simple process. So what's the problem in this? The cross-functional process does involve multiple people. During those points of exchange, you may need to pass information along to validate, again, why the product needed to be exchanged. Beyond that, if you're shipping it out, if you're just drop shipping directly to the customer, you may want to have that tracking number. You may not even get to the point of a face-to-face exchange in your storefront, but you may need to give that information to the customer so they can feel secure that you are handling their situation. But at that same time, the support person who took that ticket may not be actually procuring the goods or have access to your accounting suite to make that purchase. So, during a typical service process we've already discussed, it may start off with one team member or one department, and it'll end up with a different one. There's also one dedicated point of contact, but I always use the term there's many cooks in the kitchen to resolve this issue. So if you've ever encountered a scenario where you've worked with a corporation or a company, and you have to say, okay, who do I call, or who do I need to email or contact to get this resolved, and they pass you off a bunch of different times, that's because there's no process in place in the organization to make that information transfer, and there's nobody being held accountable. At that same point, again, we require specific context at each stage in the process. So the last thing we're going to touch on is a lack of follow-through. So the best example I usually give is if you've ever been in a situation where you've asked a team member, what happened with that? Yeah, a couple of people have heard that before. So at this point, how do you handle that situation? There's nothing in place to pass the information along. There's nothing in place to let somebody else know it's your turn to resolve this. And if I go back and look at something, it's not one of those ad hoc, hey, James, can you order that? Because I need one by next week. You don't know where that goes. Then we have the cross-functional non-collaboration. And again, it just boils down to how do you communicate effectively during a business process, and in this scenario, during a process where you have to deliver an alternative product or good to your customer. And the unclear accountability. So this is a pretty common situation, and again, it's what happened to that? Whose fault is it? Well, I don't like to place blame, but at the same time, what are you supposed to do when your support person has done everything they can, given all the information to the individual? Maybe it's vocal or via email, but that email gets lost in an inbox. So you don't know what's supposed to happen, when it's supposed to happen, and who's supposed to push you along in your process to actually complete that exchange. So now we're going to get into solution, which is Blueprint. So those of you that have used Blueprint before in another product understand exactly what we're about to go through. The features that we're going to touch on today is how easy it is to actually make a process builder. It requires no IT intervention. So when you're making this process for your organization, you don't have to know a lot of like computer knowledge. It's really easy. You just pick, what are we doing? When are we doing it? And what information do I need in the next step of my process? And then it also works across departments and roles. And again, we'll see effectively how I can pass something from a person that may be just working on a website chat, give relevant information to my procurement department or my purchasing department, and then how I can actually get that all the way to my accounting department to issue an RMA or a refund if need be. So states and transitions are the first two components that we have where we're making a blueprint. And like it says up there, a state is a single stage in the process. It's where you may pass responsibility to another individual or another department to take control and move it forward. A transition is any action that that person is taking during that process to push it to the next state in that blueprint. Common things like this are like when we have that exchange process, and I've confirmed that it's the wrong size t-shirt, and they do have another. So I can say, all right, we'll go ahead and make that exchange. It's been a week within your return period, and we'll give you a new one. And the black circles will represent states, and the arrows will represent transitions. So we got a couple transition types. When you're working with an external party or an external stakeholder during your process, there's called an automatic transition. So I'm going to go back on the slide here. So the automatic transition is when an individual talks to you, and something needs to happen from their end. So an easy example is if you think you completed that exchange, and then they send you an email, and they say, hey, it's the wrong size, that automatic transition will take you back all the way in your process and start you over, maybe halfway through, because it's already an existing ticket, but you just need to execute again the same steps, but do it correctly the second time around. The manual transition is what you're doing internally in your organization, like when you're collecting that information and moving it forward from department to department. And those are the two types of transitions we have in between each states. So we have to talk, what is the transition made of? So there's a before, during, after. There's three components to it. It's who can actually perform the transition. So this is critical because this is actually the way you make the accountability portion of what we're talking about related to an individual or a department in your organization. So not everyone will be able to have their hands in that kitchen trying to fix something. It's just the person that's most responsible, and you can dictate who that is in your blueprint. And then we have during. So during that transition, like we've already discussed, you need to find critical information before you pass it to the next department. So we have a few things that can happen that we'll check out live. The first one is a message. So if you just want a simple, hey, just a reminder, when you're going to exchange this product, this is the information we need, you can have that pop up. You can also modify a priority, and you can also change the ticket owner and validate that. So each thing right here, you can validate what goes on to ensure that when you are moving throughout your process, the data or the information is exactly what you need, and no one's just smashing their hand on the keyboard just to push something through. Now, here's the after. This is related to your workflow rules. So a lot of you see, or if you've ever worked in the workflow rules, a lot of these are very similar. We put them here. It's also included in the blueprint because the blueprint is something that forces you to follow a process, but you still need to have workflow rules. You may still need to have alerts go to your inventory department. You may need to assign tasks to certain people to get certain things done. So at the very end of that transition, we're able to actually assign tasks, update fields, whether if it's a high priority versus low priority, based on ticket context. And then we can also send emails and run custom functions. So we do have a component that is a workflow rules built into the blueprint, but it's part of the blueprint that assists you in an actual process, in your process management. So I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to go live now, and we're going to build the blueprint. So if you want to open up your desk, if you have a trial or our existing user, you can open up that now, and we'll go step by step and build one out. So if you're in desk, in the top right corner, you can click settings, and then here I'm just going to go ahead and click blueprint. So in the upper right corner, we're going to create a blueprint. And what's this name going to be? We're just going to go and do it a product exchange because you got the wrong shirt. Now, what you can do is execute a blueprint on all the records. So if you receive generic tickets that are always a similar solution or always a similar process you want to follow, feel free to apply it to everything. You also have the opportunity here to make it related to certain types of records. So since we're going to be doing a product exchange, and I only want to involve my inventory team, my support ticket team, and then in my accounting team, when we're doing an exchange, I want to make it specific to a certain type of record. So we'll just do in the subject contains exchange. So we'll go ahead and click next. Now, where we're at, on the right side, we have all of our states. So the first one is open. And again, this is when you receive a ticket in the Zoho desk. So we drag it, and we drop it right in. So the second thing is to know we have two different ways we can play this. So you have exchange declined and exchange confirmed. So I'm just going to drag exchange declined here as my second state. And then if you notice, we have these little blue dots that surround it. And there's multiple blue dots, so we're going to see a point where we can fork and have two different decisions come out of this state. So I'm just going to drag it and drop it. Now it's going to ask you for a transition. I'll just say decline. And we can just say, I'll say the shirt was purchased a year ago, type of thing. So if you ever have a situation where you don't actually want to exchange a good, we're just going to decline it. We're not going to do anything here on the before, during, or after, except for the after. If we just want to just quickly decline it, we'll go ahead and update the field. So let's go ahead and add one. Value name. Close status. Where is it at? Approved. Oh, there we go. The approved will be unchecked, so I'll do that one. Approval will be false, and we'll hit save. So I go back to my states. So now if we confirm the exchange, I'll go ahead and drag and drop that on there. I'll drag that to the bottom. And we'll call this confirmed. Oh, cannot spell today. I'll add this transition. So during this point, we do want to confirm the exchange. We'll leave the owner the same, no big deal, that'll be me. During that though, when we do exchange it, we do want to make some required fields. So let's go ahead and say approved. We need the exchange reason. And during that exchange, they'll probably gather things like the new t-shirt size. So we want those three things to pass it through the system. So we'll do the validate. The approved has to be checked. And if it does not checked, we'll send an alert. You need to approve this. And I'll hit done. So the exchange reason. So we can select a couple criteria here. We'll just go ahead and do, we'll say, how do you do it? Let's see. Let's do double quote to indicate that it's not empty. You need to select a new size. Or excuse me, you need to select a reason to exchange. And we have our new size here. So we got to do new size, small, medium, or large. Say select a new size. I'll hit done. So we've got that. We go back to our states. We need to go ahead and confirm that we have a replacement shirt. So after we confirm it, we'll drag it, we'll drop it to our next one. We'll go call this one inventory confirmed. During that, we'll keep the transition there, boom. So we'll just record owner. If you have different teams or different team members that you would like to assign responsibility, this is where you would do that. I'm the only user in this account, so it'll always be me. So I'll just go put my name there anyway. So after that, we've got our inventory confirmed. We're going to go to our available states. So we've confirmed the inventory. We'll go and procure another shirt, make sure we have it in stock, and we'll just go ahead and pick up scheduled. So I'll drag it. I'll drop it there. So let's go ahead and confirm pickup. I'll just add that transition. And then maybe let's go ahead and just add. After that, we may want to send an alert. So let's just go ahead and make a new alert. Say customer pickup. So we'll go ahead and notify the contact. Hit save. So now we can send an alert to our customer letting them know, hey, you're ready to come pick up the shirt whenever you need to. So go back to our states. Go ahead and do the exchange complete. Let's do one more. Drag and drop. Touch the name here. Let's see, let's call this completed exchange. And we'll add that transition. So one thing I did forget, when you actually have that inventory confirmation, what we can do during that, maybe we want to add the field, like a tracking number, to that as well. Say, is it empty? Say, I need to know when this will arrive. Hit done. We'll go back to our states. So the last one we have is closed. So we can drag and drop that. And we'll call this one closed ticket. So we've got a few transitions here. So I'll go ahead and save this blueprint. Now I want to go ahead and make a ticket just so we can see what that looks like from an agent's perspective. So if I go to tickets, and I was going to make one just like Travis had. We'll say, shirt was bad, I want to exchange. Shirt was too large, and I am very small. Okay, so we'll go and submit this ticket. So what you see on the bottom of the screen is going to be our blueprint. So me as an agent, I just got this ticket. Someone wants to exchange a shirt, or in any other scenario where I may need to do some troubleshooting on site or over the phone, I'll just go ahead and say, I confirm this. That's totally cool. We'll go ahead and exchange it. So when it pops over, it tells me, okay, what's the reason? Go ahead and put wrong size and check mark approved. We'll complete that transition. So at this point, if you have other people, again, in the organization or other departments that need to handle it, you can pass the ticket on to them. So for me, I'll just confirm, yeah, we do have it in inventory. Good to go. And just keep going through this. And at the bottom, you just go through each single thing until you complete it. So at that point, that's exactly how you solve the ticket. We went through very quickly on a blueprint on the bottom of the screen. And again, the reason it's a little bit different than workflow rules is primarily because workflow rules don't adhere you to any actual process. It can create alerts. It can let departments know what's going on. But at the end of the day, when you, again, have many cooks in the kitchen, no one really knows whose responsibility it is at any point in time, especially if it's a really complicated issue. So that's why we have Blueprint, but we still have workflow rules at the end of each state and transition to trigger like notifications and things like that.